Welcome to Fireside Giants, a featured podcast by Empire Sports Media. I'm your host, Alexander Wilson, my co-hosts, Anthony Rivardo and Mike Iarapino. Give us a follow on Twitter if you haven't already, Alex Wilson ESM, Anthony_Rivardo, and Mike_NYY. Also, smash that subscribe button on YouTube if you haven't. We've been getting players and reactions and tons of awesome content out for you guys during the quarantine and just trying to keep things fresh and new. And this week, we have a really special and awesome feature for you guys. For the draft, we have a live stream with New York Giants running back John Gettleman. So he's going to come on, answer your live Q&A questions. So that's going to be really cool. You'll be able to ask questions in the chat and just really hang out with us, interview, be a part of this kind of podcast as we grow and expand. So it's really cool to be able to incorporate everybody listening and the people that have made this possible. So thank you for that, and we're going to have some fun, watch the Giants, hopefully not be disappointed. And that's kind of what we want to talk about today. But first, I want to ask, how are you guys doing?
Same old. Well here. Yep. Same boring quarantine just like last week.
Absolutely.
I feel you. Nothing ever changes. It's like I know everything that's going on, and every day I wake up and I'm just like, what do I do? Like, what is there to do today except the same thing I did yesterday? I don't know. I tweeted out a few days ago, like, is anyone else going stir crazy? And like everybody was like, yes, I'm going crazy. And after the NFL draft, like, where do we go from there? Because there's nothing going to be going on in person. Like, the teams can't start training. There's nothing. So I'm just really excited for this. It's like the only sort of excitement I've had.
Apparently, Rob Manfred said baseball's coming back, so we'll see. I don't think it's happening, but we'll see.
I don't think it will. And here's why. Just for anyone that's curious and, hearing these rumors that the MLB might start in Arizona, there's a lot of old managers, old coaches, and elderly people involved in baseball, and everyone's touching the same ball, and it's. I feel like if one person gets it and is confirmed, they're saying a lot of people have the virus but are asymptomatic, so they're not showing symptoms, but they are positive with it. If one person gets it, they have to shut the whole league down again. So they have to be testing people like every day to make sure that it's safe and secure for people and the players, really. And same thing with the NFL. Like, we're talking about guys tackling other human beings, sweating all over each other, probably bleeding on each other. It's like kind of crazy to think like this could last a lot longer than we think, and I'm trying to be positive about it, but I'm just also trying to face reality. But do you guys think this is going to be like well into September, or are we heading in the right direction?
It sounds like it's heading in the right direction, but yeah, that's what you hear on TV. I think they're trying to be optimistic. I'm trying to set a realistic day here. Hopefully sometime in July maybe things can resume, but like we really have no idea. That's like kind of the unknown of it.
Yeah, I have no idea when it's going to open. I'm just hoping that it's going to be ready for obviously football season, but who knows? I know that there's a strong push right now to end all lockdowns, and I don't know what that could potentially do for the spread of the coronavirus, so I don't really know how it's going to improve or if it could worsen, because I also read a report today that there could be a second round of it that comes in the winter, and that could be even worse. So I really don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just hoping that somehow we get it sorted out and we have a football season, because that's all I really care about.
Yeah, and you got to hold down the people in Florida, Ant, because I hear they're getting a little crazy up there. Or down there.
You have no idea.
In New York, it's crazy. Yeah, like I can't even imagine, because in New York, like my neighbor, came over today to get something, and my mom's like, "Oh, you want to come inside?" I'm like, "Okay, first of all, that's a really interesting question to ask right now." And he's like, "No, I'm not coming anywhere near you guys. Like, you just give me what I need, and I gotta go." So I was like, I kind of respect that. In Florida, it sounds like people are still partying and I don't know, doing whatever they're doing in close proximity.
I think my sister's like having a friend over or something tomorrow, so I'm like, okay, I'll be in my room. I'm not going near you guys.
I feel that, but luckily we still have football and just recent news stuff to enjoy. In the meantime, these mock drafts have been like saving my life recently. Just something to do when I'm bored. But today's been an interesting day. We've seen a lot of rumors, especially this week. Actually, even it's only Tuesday, and we've seen Justin Herbert in the news correlated to the Giants, which is weird. We've seen Derrick Brown back in the fold. Jordan Renan said today or this morning, here's a little draft tidbit. Like, I I want to say I believe him, but at the same time, like, he comes out of nowhere sometimes, like out of absolutely nowhere. I haven't heard from this guy in months, and out of nowhere, he's like, yeah, Derrick Brown could be a top 5 pick. And I'm like, well, we already knew that, kind of. Like, we could already assume, like, he might be, like you're not really giving us new news, but it just kind of scares the crap out of people, because now I'm like, oh, man, he could be a top 5 pick, and the Giants are number 4. Like, what are they going to do? But, before we dive into the Derrick Brown stuff, I want to talk about Tom Brady and Gronk. They just said Gronk is coming back into the NFL. He wants to play with Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. I mean, he is basically in Florida all the time now. He's like, I don't want the cold of New England. So they gave up. So, okay, basically, the Patriots still have rights over Gronk's contract. So he came back, and they just gave, I think it's Gronk and a 7th-round pick for a 4th-rounder. And now Tampa Bay has Cameron Brate, O.J. Howard, and Gronkowski. 3 really good tight ends. So what are you guys thinking about that? What do you guys think they can mash up over there? It seems like they're just kind of throwing stuff into the mix and have no way of actually utilizing all this talent.
It seems like someone's got to go. I don't think there's any reason to keep those 3 tight ends. I think O.J. Howard definitely has more value over Cameron Brate because of age and where he was drafted and just natural ability. So I do think Howard could be traded maybe for a 3rd-round pick or so, which would be nice for them. Of course, the Buccaneers, they need some safety help, offensive line depth, and, stuff like that. So I think doing that might be the right move. And, of course, Howard hasn't had a career that he's, probably happy with so far, but maybe he can succeed elsewhere. We saw a guy like Eric Ebron lead the Lions, had a great year with the Colts. So sometimes it's all about location.
Touchdowns.
So, yeah, I mean, he has the talent, and he killed the Giants when he played us a couple years ago, O.J. Howard, so you never know.
Yeah, when I first saw the report that the Patriots and Bucs were working on a trade, I thought it was like so obvious that O.J. Howard was going to end up on the Patriots. They have such a hole at tight end, and we've seen that rumor pop up like 100 times in the past year. So I was really surprised that didn't happen. But I think O.J. Howard's definitely going to be on the move, and I'm kind of excited to watch Gronkowski play again with Tom Brady. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, I think Gronk dropped like 20 pounds, so he was about to go to the WWE. This guy is like. He, retired, invested in a cannabis company, and then like got all into like this other world, WWE. Now he's about to become like a fake fighter or whatever. And it's all his life is just like a circus, and it's so entertaining. But the reality is, I don't think Brady's going to be as good as people think in Tampa Bay. And I think he is very much a system quarterback. They built around him very specifically with their running backs. You always notice they have 2 agile running backs with Stoney Michel and James White. So it's going to be interesting because they don't really have a running back. What do they have? Like Ronald Jones, who actually just wasn't that bad last year. But he doesn't have. I don't think Brady has the arm strength to utilize Mike Evans and Godwin on on the deep plays. I don't know. Do you guys think he's going to succeed there, or do you think he's kind of a system guy? Like, he's kind of just a shot in the dark at this point?
I think he'll do pretty well because Bruce Arians has just this great history with quarterbacks. I know Jameis Winston sucked last year, but you think back to Carson Palmer, Ben Roethlisberger before that. I think Andrew Luck as well. Always have good history with those guys. So I do think a guy like Brady, as smart as he is, he's not going to throw the ball 50 yards down the field accurate as hell. But Drew Brees lives off accuracy. You know what I mean? And in the short intermediate passes. And you have some very talented guys there. The only concern I have is the offensive line. I do think the Bucs will probably take a running back 2nd or 3rd round. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a guy that I love, would be a perfect fit there as a pass-catching running back, so I'm hoping that would happen. But, Ronald Jones is all right. But in terms of the pass-catching weapons there, I think it's a very good situation. They just might need some offensive tackle help.
Yeah, I agree. I think offensive tackle is what they should definitely invest in at that 14th overall pick. But I also think another scenario for them is they could trade down from there, potentially get like a late 1st-round pick and maybe a mid-2nd-round pick. And then they could get that slot receiver that Tom Brady loves in Justin Jefferson, and then maybe get a 2nd-round offensive tackle. And then we're going to be talking about them as legitimate Super Bowl contenders. So I think they definitely have the potential with Brady to become those contenders, but at the current moment, I don't really see it that way. I think it's a huge question mark. They just, they signed a 43, 42-year-old quarterback, and they traded for a tight end who hasn't been playing football for over a year. So I don't think you can instantly just pencil them in as Super Bowl champions for 2020 or 2021. But I definitely think that they've got enough pieces, enough draft capital to maybe make some moves and get themselves in position to be that.
Right, and like you said, Bruce Arians is really good with quarterbacks. I don't even cough up Jameis Winston struggles to him. I mean, Jameis Winston just made the most ridiculous throws sometimes, and his offense, like, he was good when it came to scoring, but he threw so many interceptions, and that was really just mental lapses. Like, that wasn't really Arians' fault. The offense looked good at times. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how the Buccaneers play. They have the talent, that's for sure. But back to the Giants. I don't want to talk about Derrick Brown, but we have to because it's kind of in the news now. What do you guys think about this scenario? This is very specific. So I wrote about this morning, and I was like, okay, if the Giants traded Dalvin Tomlinson for draft capital, because they already have Tomlinson, Dexter Lawrence, and Leonard Williams, 3 very capable players. Leonard Williams is a good player, being overpaid, but he's a good player. Tomlinson had his best year in 2019, and Dexter Lawrence is super promising. I really like him, and you can't get past that fact. Drafting Derrick Brown right now would make no sense unless one of them had to go. So in my perspective, you trade Tomlinson for draft capital and you take Derrick Brown, and people are like, oh, he could be Aaron Donald 2.0. I'm like, no, it's like comparing Daniel Jones to Tom Brady right now. Like, you can't really do that. But he is extremely talented. He's one of the most surefire players in this draft. I'm not advocating for him. I'm just kind of presenting a scenario that may or may not work, and everyone's going to be like, not a chance, and I agree with you, because we need offensive tackle support or Isaiah Simmons. But what do you think about that? If we traded Tomlinson for draft capital, it's like a third, fourth round pick, and then drafted Derrick Brown.
I'll be honest, I would not be happy with it. I'd be better than just taking Brown outright and keeping Tomlinson, but that's not a scenario I would wish for, honestly. I mean, I do think Brown has a chance to fall out of the top 10 in this draft. I don't think it's like guaranteed he's going to be a top 10 pick. A lot of people like Kinlaw more. I mean, I've been talking about it for a couple of months, but people seem to like Javon Kinlaw's upside. So I do think that's a possibility. I think in my latest mock draft, I had Derrick Brown going like 18th to the Dolphins, and people thought I was crazy. And
wow,
that's a bit late, but
crazy.
Like we'll see. But like, yeah, I think he'll be a really good NFL player. Like I said with Dexter Lawrence last year, very good NFL player. I just don't know about the whole positional value thing. Would you take a guy that high in the draft? We'll see what NFL teams do, but it's something you got to think about for sure.
Yeah, I'm not fully against trading Dalvin Tomlinson for draft capital. I'm just fully against trading him and then replacing him with a number 4 overall defensive tackle. I think I've been very, very open about my feelings on Derrick Brown and investing in the defensive tackle position, because I think we've invested far too much there already, and I don't want to see them do it again. And yeah, I don't think Derrick Brown. I think he's really just mainly a run stuffer, and the positional value, like you brought up, Mike, that's really where it comes down to. You look at offensive tackle and you look at linebacker, and I think that those are bigger positions of need and more valuable positions for the Giants and most teams. And I also think that Jordan Rannon report about him going in the top 5, I'm really not sure that he was hinting towards the Giants. I know he covers the Giants, but I think he could have been hinting towards the Lions. That seems to be
definitely true. Yeah,
there's a lot of buzz growing around that, and it seems like a more reasonable fit there.
Yeah. No, you're right. It could have been any player in the top 5. The Lions are such a big question mark for me right now. I cannot figure out what they're going to do. But the fact that they traded away Darius Slay, and Matt Patricia has always had a really good cornerback. Like when he was with the Patriots, he had Gilmore. No, he didn't have Gilmore yet, did he? But he had Malcolm Butler. And he always had like a number 1 corner to work with. So I think he really wants that guy, like that lockdown corner he can trust. And I think Jeff Okudah is that guy for him. So I think that's where they're looking. But Gettleman's been really good this offseason for one reason, and that is he hasn't tipped his hand at all. Last season, we already knew who he was going to draft, like a week and a half before it happened. I don't know if you guys remember that, but there were reports going around that Daniel Jones was their pick like a week and a half, 2 weeks before the draft. That's crazy to me. And Saquon. That's crazy to me that, they tipped their hand so much. So what is the only difference between now and then? Joe Judge. Joe Judge had to come in and make some sort of change, or at least present an alternative to how they were going to go about this draft, because Gettleman has seemed to tip his hand every single time. And if you see what they've said the past few days, like Gettleman's like he keeps like counterpointing himself. Like he said, this tackle class is super deep, which would indicate that they would wait till the second round because they can get a good value there. But then he's like, Nate Solder played terribly last year. Which would indicate that you kind of need to replace him with a play right now. You can't wait a year and then try and replace him. You got to do something now. They've also said so many other things. They're like, oh, Isaiah Simmons is a freak athlete, or whatever it might be. Like they've hit on so many different lines, and then you have Justin Herbert walking in the door, and we're like, what are you doing, Justin? Why are you FaceTiming Joe Judge twice? This is a little strange now that we're seeing Justin Herbert enter the picture. So how do we decipher this and analyze it? In my opinion, I'm looking at it saying, okay, the only way to understand what kind of leverage you have is to understand the value and the picks around you and the players available, especially the quarterbacks. If you can figure out how valuable Justin Herbert is right now and what he is worth to another team, then you can increase your price tag if a team's trying to move up and grab a player like that, because Joe Burrow is gone after the number one pick. So you have Tua, Justin, and Jordan Love. And Tua and Justin are probably neck and neck right now, but Justin's probably leading the race just because of Tua's injury history. So we're looking at a team right now. We know the Lions haven't been interested in moving back that much. We haven't heard much about it, but the Giants and Gettleman have been very open to the idea of trading back. So how do you see Justin Herbert playing into this role, and why do you think he's been so involved with their draft evaluation process?
So the first part of it is, I think best case for the Giants is you want the two teams behind you to want the same guy in Justin Herbert. Like if the Chargers and the Dolphins both want Herbert, obviously you can't split them in half and put them on both teams. So in that case, they might have to trade up to your pick and you get assets for him. But I do think, what was the second question? Where he would go, or for Herbert?
Why do you think he's so involved with like our draft evaluation?
Oh yeah,
so
yeah.
far?
So I think, this is something that the Patriots did apparently, and I do think it makes sense because in the scenario that Herbert would go to like the Redskins or something and you face him twice a year, I think someone said, I think it was Ross Tucker on Twitter, said like he wants to know the weaknesses of his opponent. And honestly, you might face Justin Herbert, twice a year, maybe once every 4 years, whatever it is, but you're going to face him down the line eventually. So to know the guy's weaknesses already is probably a good move.
Yeah, I think that's the key part of it. I think that's why they're evaluating him. And also, I think I saw Art Stapleton tweet this out. It's something that you kind of just file away. You talk with him now, and then 5 years from now, if something happens and Daniel Jones doesn't pan out, you already have like a head start on Justin Herbert. You spoke to him 5 years ago and evaluated him before the draft. And it could be a potential bridge to look at him as maybe a backup one day if he doesn't pan out, or as a starter if Daniel Jones doesn't pan out. So it's kind of like a contingency plan, just covering all the bases and making sure you've done all of your homework. We really praised Joe Judge for his detail orientation when he came here, and it looks like that's really what he's doing, is just being detail oriented and making sure that he does all the homework that he possibly can on every single prospect, and it's music to my ears.
Right, and I think that you kind of hit it on the head with that one. Judge is super detail-oriented, and Gettleman is really good at evaluating specific groups of players, especially the offensive line. So his thing is, I love my hog mollies, and I'm going to put all my time into the hog mollies, and we're going to find good hog mollies. But Joe Judge is like, there's other positions that are super important too, right? And that's kind of where I think Gettleman's weaknesses are, is that he is really good at evaluating those protection guys. And trench guys. I think he is phenomenal at finding really good value on the offensive line and the defensive line. However, I think the other positions, wide receiver, linebackers, safety, secondary guys especially, I think that he's not as good there. I think those are his weak points, which is where I think Joe Judge comes in and helps, because he was a wide receiver coach for New England last year, and has been working with special teams for a long time as their coordinator. And I think Bill Belichick said, I don't understand why special teams coordinators aren't hired as head coaches more often. They work with both sides of the ball. So I think that's a super important thing to know about Judge. And he's coming in here and he's making a difference so far. We've seen a lot of changes, and he's really been given a bad hand right off the bat. We're looking at a guy who just joined the Giants, and then a huge global pandemic hits at the same time. So he's really been set back, and he's done a phenomenal job so far keeping things under wrap and preparing for this draft. And I mean, the fact that he's evaluating and FaceTiming Justin Herbert with like 3 days left before the draft is pretty impressive to me. It says that he already knows everything he needs to know about the players he's looking at, but he's taking the extra step further to evaluate how much leverage he has at the number 4 spot. And I know Art Stapleton also said, 5 years down the line, but people aren't evaluating people for the draft right now with the anticipation of their franchise quarterback becoming a backup and wanting Justin Herbert 5 years from now. Like, that's, maybe you could consider that after the draft, but I don't think that's why you're looking into a player right now, 3 days before you have to make a huge decision which could affect your franchise for the next 5 to 6 years. So that's my opinion, but I think we've looked pretty good so far this offseason. We've made good choices, and now it's time to put it all together. Do you guys think like those mid-round picks are super important? So like in the second round, what do you think is the most valuable pick there? Let's say they go like Isaiah Simmons, for example. We'll just do each scenario, but if they go Isaiah Simmons, what do you think is the most valuable pick in the second round?
I mean, of course, you just got to make sure you get a good player. I wouldn't chase a position necessarily, but if we're going by position, I think if Cesar Ruiz is there in round 2, I think that's a guy you probably have to take at 36. That'd be a good value at that point because a lot of people say he's going in the late first round. So if you can get him at 36, it's probably a good value right there. And there's a lot of good cornerbacks in this draft that go in that area. So I'm not necessarily sure the Giants are in position to take one right now because you're hoping DeAndre Baker, Julian Love take another step in year 2. But then, positions like receiver, not really a big need right now. But those are like the thickest positions, as Dave Gettleman would say. It's cornerback, wide receiver at 36. But there's some good players everywhere. I mean, it might be a bit too early to reach on some edge guys. Like I'm a Terrell Lewis guy. Josh Uchi's there as well. So, I mean, there's some people you can take. I'm very fascinated to see what positions they try to address in the draft, though.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at a specific position to go with at 36, I think center is the best option, like you mentioned, Cesar Ruiz. And I know they've shown a lot of interest in Temple center Matt Hennessy.
And Hennessy, yeah.
Yep. And I'm not fully against going wide receiver at 36. I think you could really get a star in this year's draft class. I think you could maybe get that number 1 receiver for Daniel Jones and fill a big void there on the offense that we left behind by trading Odell. So I'm not fully against that either.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I don't think I would go wide receiver unless I was packaging a few picks. We have like 4 7th-round picks, right? There is no way that we're keeping all those picks. They're going to trade up at some point to get a player. And I would love if I would even say like all those 7-rounders, package them together and move up as far as you can in the 3rd round if Chase Claypool is getting there. We kind of have a late pick at the 99th. If we had 68 still, we probably could have got Chase Claypool in that mid-3rd round. Which is really, looking back now, is really disappointing that we don't have that pick. But it's going to be interesting to see, where the Giants go with this. They have so many different directions, and that's what's been really killing me these past few days. Just every opportunity, like everything they can do. They can draft Simmons. They can trade back for an offensive lineman. They could double trade back. It's a possibility. I don't really know what they're going to do, guys.
You guys think they trade back or no? Like, actually, if you had to guess right now, you think it happens?
I think they're going to try.
Yeah, I think they're going to try really hard, and they really want to, but I just don't know if there's going to be any bidders, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I saw the quote today from Gettleman. He said this a couple times, actually. He's like, I see teams trade back, and they miss out on a really good player. So when you put out a quote like that, it's kind of like you're nervous to trade back, and that's just Gettleman's philosophy. Then you kind of clash with Joe Judge, who comes from an organization that loved to trade back. So we'll see who actually gets the final say there. And there might be a team trying to trade up. I agree with Anthony. You're not sure who wants to trade up right now because I do think that Herbert and Tua, they might land at 5 and 6. There's really no need for these teams to trade up right now, so we'll see. It really depends what the Lions do, obviously. But, I do think in terms of trading back, they probably will try. But if I had to guess right now and make an educated guess about it, I would say they don't trade back unless it is the 5 or 6 because Gettleman doesn't want to lose those really good prospects that he was talking about.
Yeah. No, you're right. And Judge has been super weird about it, too, because he's like, you have to take the best player in the draft, right? Like I'm pretty sure he said that like a few weeks ago when they were interviewing him. But that's in line with Gettleman. They both. If he said that, I'm positive he said that. They both have now said you have to take the best player available, and like Gettleman's never traded back before. So that's kind of concerning me. He's also never drafted an offensive lineman in the 1st round before. So there could be a lot of firsts, and that's why it's hard to determine what's going to happen. Because, we're sitting here like, he could draft an offensive lineman, he could trade back. Those are 2 scenarios he's never done in like almost a decade of being a general manager in the NFL. So when you think about that, you're like, okay, then Isaiah Simmons is the pick, right? That would be the most logical, avenue to take with this, knowing those 2 facts. That it makes the most sense for him, to be picking Isaiah Simmons. But
or he
what
sticks to what he knows and takes a defensive tackle. That's the bad part.
Oh, God. See, like, I don't want to talk about that, though, man.
I know.
Here's also something that I want to bring up with the trading down thing. What if they drafted Justin Herbert and then tried to trade him for
Like Eli Manning style?
Yeah, kind of. But, like, I feel like you would probably get more interest at that point because the guy is off the board. He has no chance of falling that extra spot to the Dolphins or Chargers. Like, it would force their hand. They would have to give up their first-round pick and additional assets, wouldn't it?
It could, but
I guess that would make sense.
It's risky.
I know, it's risky. It's risky.
Yeah.
It's really risky.
Yeah.
Because what if all the other GMs are like, you know what? We all secretly hate Dave, and this is our chance to really screw him over. And
Yeah,
they're all going to be like, nope.
They're all in
Justin
a group
Herbert's
chat
only playing tight
privately.
end.
I've tried this in
Yeah.
fantasy football before where I take all the quarterbacks, and I thought about this before, but then I was like, what if no one wants to trade for my quarterbacks? And then I'm screwed. Like, that's definitely a scenario. It's definitely different from NFL standards, but that's too risky of a move to me.
Yeah, also because I got Lamar Jackson in like the 7th round last year. So it was I'm in the boat of like never drafting a quarterback in fantasy like above the 4th round. I always draft them below because there's so many value guys there. Like you don't need like Patrick Mahomes is going to put up like 30 to 40 points every week, but you can get like a good value player and not, you know, your depth at other positions are going to take a hit.
I took Josh Allen everywhere, final round. I loved it.
Josh Allen?
Yeah. I took the year that Deshaun Watson was a rookie. I drafted him in the final round of the draft, and then he went for those first like 8 weeks and went crazy. He wasn't even a starter when I drafted him. And then the next year I got Mahomes in like the 2nd to last round when he went for the MVP season. So that was pretty cool.
Yep. There's always those gold mines at the end of the draft that people don't know about. Mine was supposed to be Miles Sanders last year, and he picked it up at like halfway, but he sucked in the beginning. I don't know. This next year, the quarterbacks should be pretty good, but there's a lot of question marks. Like I would say Daniel Jones is going to see a big improvement. You know, I think those 18 fumbles last year really stands out to me, and I think that a lot of them had to do with more of him not throwing the ball fast enough than it did anything else. So he has to. I think that's part of the NFL development, though. I think this next year we're going to see a big jump for Daniel Jones, especially if Saquon Barkley can remain healthy. That's why I think like you have to protect your investments. Like I love Simmons, man, I really do, but when you're investing that much in Daniel Jones and that much in Saquon Barkley, and you don't give them the support they need, you look like an idiot. Like look what happened to Eli Manning with no protection over the years. He had like happy feet. You know, he was bouncing all around. He couldn't set himself because he was worried he was going to get smashed in the mouth every play. I don't want that to happen to Daniel Jones, and Nate Solder is a liability. We cannot guarantee he's going to bounce back because we thought he was going to bounce back last year. That didn't happen. So they got to go out and protect these guys. And if Saquon Barkley, and I saw this, you know, a wide receiver is a wide receiver. A running back like Saquon Barkley can be a wide receiver and run the ball at a very high level. So you have to maximize him. Like if you're going to spend the 2nd overall pick, you might as well maximize it. You know, like going back to that, you can't just forget about your best 2 players. I mean, Daniel Jones is hopefully going to be that guy moving forward, but then you have Saquon Barkley, who like arguably is your best player, and you're not helping him succeed.
Yeah, they already wasted his first 2 years, basically. I hope they give him the necessary blocking and even scheme he needs to succeed, because as I've said 100 times, take a running back that high and don't use him the right way, it's not worth it.
It's a waste.
You might as well trade back at that point. So they better use Barkley in a way where he puts up Christian McCaffrey type numbers, you know, of course if he stays healthy, but that's what we want to see.
Yeah, and I'll say I have recently changed my mind on this. I know I was on that Isaiah Simmons hype train forever. I finally got off. I think they should go offensive tackle in the 1st round. And one of the main reasons that I've changed my mind is because I went and I watched like the film of Austin Jackson and Isaiah Wilson, the guys
so
who were
bad.
Like, yeah, the guys
so
were
bad.
commonly mocked to us in the 2nd round. I watched them and I'm like, these are projects. This takes 2 years at least to get them to be quality starters.
Jackson is a mess. Did you see his balance is some of the worst I've seen. It looks like he's on ice skates playing left tackle.
They have no technique, either of them. No technique. Like you can't afford to do it.
Jackson. I didn't see it. I was like, yeah, he's pretty athletic, but like, what does he have technique wise? It just didn't make sense.
Yeah,
I don't see it.
At first, I was like, oh, maybe Jackson in the 2nd round. I was like, okay, I could live with that. But then I started looking at the 1st round guys a lot more, like Wills. And Andrew Thomas, and I was like, wait a second, this guy is nowhere near this level.
Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy. But the only guy I could see making sense in the 2nd round is Ezra Cleveland. He's at Boise, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like him. I like the both of the Auburn tackles. I think are pretty good.
I love Jack Driscoll.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I think
Yeah.
he's super underrated, and I like that UConn tackle Matt Pert. I think he's pretty good too. I think he needs to add some strength, but he's got pretty good technique. So there are some like later round guys that have like a shot at being a starter, but
they'll take one. They'll take one though. You know, like that's what Gettleman does. He takes those. He'll even if he gets a guy in the first round. Because think about this for a second. Like if you really think about this, if you draft, let's say you draft someone in the first round, but if he goes and takes another one in the mid rounds, later rounds, which he always does, and he pans out, you have a first round bargaining chip right there. Yeah. Like 2 years from now, he's like, okay, this guy is actually doing something really good. You know, play him, give him some game tape, and then suddenly you fake an injury to your left tackle, and then you get him some game tape, and suddenly you have a guy you can trade for maybe a second round pick, and that you invested, whatever it might be. So that's kind of exciting, but I think Nick Gates is also one of those guys, those breakout players. But I just want to go through one player you think is going to break out on the offensive side of the ball this year, not defense, but just offensive.
Now I got to think about this.
Yeah, I'm hoping and praying, and I think it should be that it's Evan Engram. I think it makes a lot of sense with the new offensive scheme that really prioritizes the tight end position. It only makes sense for him to finally break out, but he has to stay healthy, so it's kind of hard to bet on Evan Engram at this point, but that's my pick.
I'm going to counteract that and say Caden Smith. I don't trust.
Son of a gun.
I don't trust Engram to stay healthy. Unfortunately, I was all in last year. I was like, this guy. I made a bold prediction video. There's going to be an 800-yard, 8-touchdown year for Engram. Looked good the first 4 games, and then what do you know? Guy got hurt. So I think this might be Caden Smith's season to be a starter most of the time. Assuming Engram gets hurt, and I think he might be that breakout guy.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Smith is super underrated. He's coming in, has a chip on his shoulder, and I think I said this the other day. Evan Engram should be traded after they extend him for his 5th year. Because you add value to his contract now. You add value to him knowing that a team can get him and know he's locked down already. Wait until the trade deadline. Hopefully he can put some decent numbers together. Just kind of limit his snaps to try and mitigate injury, which I know is really hard to do with a guy that's always injured. But, if they can trade him, get some sort of value. I've seen lately people suggesting, I think people just talk out of their ass sometimes. Because it's really frustrating to me that people really think that the Giants can trade Evan Engram for the number 31 pick in the NFL draft this year. Like a first-round pick.
George Kittle, too.
That's what I'm saying. People are actually saying that the 49ers, who already have arguably the best tight end in football, aside from Travis Kelce, is, they're going to give up their first-round pick for Evan Engram, who's almost missed an entire year over the last 2 seasons. Because people just value this guy like he's so fast. And I'm like, okay, so is Tyreek Hill, but he's putting up actual numbers, and Evan Ingram's has a mid-foot sprain, is now in a walking boot for 5 months. I'm just I don't want to hear. It's just crazy to me that people actually think that's possible, and then bigger accounts on Twitter posting and saying that that's suggesting that the Giants could move back a few spots and gain more top draft capital for trading Evan Engram. The most I would be happy with getting Engram for is a late 3rd round pick. That's probably his worth right now.
Yeah, I'd say early 3rd at most, probably.
I have to go delete a tweet now, Alex. I don't really think that they can get a first-round pick for him, the 31st pick, but the only way that I move Engram is if I'm getting a high 2nd or a late 1st, because I value him like that. I think he really can be a superstar if he stays healthy. I know the health really brings down his value, but that's why I just wouldn't trade him. I'm just going to let him play it out, prove it, see what he has, and if he can stay healthy, I think that then he'll be worth a first-round pick if he could prove himself. But yeah, there's no chance they get the 31st pick. It's a dream though, and I would like for it to come true.
At this point, they might just have to let it ride, and
I think so.
They might.
Yeah.
I think if they were going to do it, they should have done it at last trade deadline. But we always say that Landon Collins, Janoris Jenkins, they just don't do it at the trade deadline. So I don't expect them to do it this year.
They only trade
they
for
should
guys
just
on
extend
contract
him.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, honestly, extending him is not a bad idea because I don't think his cap hits that much next year anyway, or for his 5th year. It wouldn't even be that much, so you might as well just ride it out, worst case scenario, and then just insert Caden Smith into that fold once Evan Ingram's contract is over. But I do not think extending him past that 5th year is a good idea. Especially if he remains injured. That mid-foot sprain required surgery. We haven't even seen him since then. We don't know what he's going to be like coming off of that. It's those things are serious, and there could be implications we don't know about. So, that's kind of where my head's at. But this draft should be pretty interesting. I think we have a lot of opportunity, a lot of opportunity to get really good players, and the Giants can retool a bunch of their positions. But it really comes down to the defense. Next season, any success next season comes down to the secondary developing, like Julian Love, DeAndre Baker, Corey Ballantyne, Sam Beal. These guys got to show some sort of value, and the Giants are going to struggle again if they can't. So that also says, the Giants need to put some effort into building their defense out, but they have no cap space. So it really comes down to the draft now. Like who can they get to make the most out of it? But I don't know. Are you guys excited?
Oh,
Hell
so
yeah.
excited, man. I can't wait.
After that, though, I don't know what's
yeah.
going to happen. You're right. I mean, after the draft, we have nothing to look forward to, so I'm definitely going to enjoy it for sure.
Yeah.
I know, yeah. We got to enjoy every second of it. We have an awesome show on Thursday, too, with John Hillman coming on. It should be really, really fun to talk to him, talk ball, and just, do a live Q&A with everybody and just people asking questions. You don't really get to experience that very often. I know they have, Instagram Live questions sometimes with some of the players, but you don't get to do it live. It's not like you can ask questions on the spot and see their responses and reactions to things. So it's a lot different, but we'll be mediating everything and making sure everything runs smoothly, but it should be awesome. I'm really excited to see the draft. I'm going to be so nervous. I am every year, especially last season, but I'm pretty excited. Before we go, I just want to see, last prediction, last mock for the first round. I'm going to start with Mike. Where do you think we're going?
I was about to bring this up. I'm like, we're not signing off without giving our prediction here. But
Of course.
Let's see. I want Jedrick Wills. The last 2 years, they haven't done what I wanted. But I do think it's Jedrick Wills, so that's what I'm going with.
Me too, man. I think that's what they're going to do. I think that Gettleman has kind of tipped his hand at this point. I think he's going offensive tackle, and most of the reports seem to indicate that their favorite right now is Jedrick Wills. So I think that's going to be the pick, and I'm kind of hoping it is.
Okay. I'm going to do a little bit something more interesting. I'm going to say they trade back with Miami of the Chargers, right? They're going to still draft Isaiah Simmons, but the draft capital they get, they're going to package all of it together, move up into the first round as much as possible, and get the best tackle available. After Mekhi Becton's flag drug test, he could drop a few spots. So you never know. I'm going to say they take the risk and get the best guy available because we know Gettleman's really good at evaluating that talent. He'll know which one to pick. And we have Mark Colombo and Jason Garrett, two guys that are very, very, very versed in having good offensive linemen. We get Simmons, get the highest rated tackle at that spot, and then we walk into the sunset. That's my prediction.
Hope so.
Sounds good to me, man.
Yeah. So that is it for today on Fireside Giants. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope everybody is happy, healthy, and excited for the NFL Draft on Thursday. Please make sure to tune in. We'll have all the links readily available on Twitter, and we'll be sending out all the information prior to the draft. 7:30 start time for the John Hillman Q&A, and then we'll be watching the draft together and enjoying what hopefully will be a very exciting evening. So thank you, and we're signing off.